Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so that you know when live we go.
Hello and welcome to today's DNS session. We are going to have a discussion on today's newspaper, The Hindu, Delhi edition dated 19th March 2021. But before we begin, I must just quickly remind you of the pre-parikshan test that has been opened today. You can take the test till 21st March. The result will be announced on 22nd. It will be a good self-check as to where you stand in your preparation. And accordingly, depending upon your weak and strong area, you can re-strategize your strategy for the coming prelims. I will highly recommend you, whether you feel prepared or not, you please give the test. It will give you lots of confidence. It will give you lots of insight about your preparation. Articles that we have taken up for discussion are there on your screen, and timestamping for the same has been provided at appropriate place. The first article that we are going to take up for discussion is from page number 16. It is titled Equities Fall as US Bond Yield Rise on Fed Stance. What is the Fed stance? The Fed stance presently is dovish. Dovish policy stance means that the central bank is less worried about inflation and the focus is more on reviving the growth so that the issue of high unemployment can be tackled better. Dovish stance are also taken by the central reserve banks when there is disinflation. Under dovish policy, the central bank lowers interest rate so that the economy is kick-started, growth is back on the track, and problem of unemployment can be mitigated. But the sharp point that we have to pick here is this. Dovish policy means that the central bank is either considering or it has already lowered the interest rate. When the interest rate by the central bank is lowered, especially if that is the case in US, then the bond yield will rise. And when the bond yield is rising in US, that will be quickly followed in India and elsewhere, and the equity market will be negatively affected. The share price is going to fall. In our short discussion here, we are going to just set the link between these three events. Number one, central bank adopting dovish policy, meaning lowering the interest rate. How is that leading to rise in US bond yield? And how is that in turn affecting equities in India and elsewhere? The larger issue of rise in bond yield and how is that going to affect investors and government, we have covered in our weekly session of discussion on explained section of Indian Express. This was covered in the discussion of explained section for the 4th week of the month of February. Since the issue has been covered elaborately already, in our discussion will be little quick and short. First of all, what is bond yield? Very simplistically, bond yield is basically the return that investor get on the bond he is holding. For example, suppose an investor bought certain unit of bonds, rupees 100 each. The interest rate on the bond is 5%. Bond yield is basically the annual return. In this case, he is going to get rupees 5 every year on an investment of rupees 100. Bond yield in this case is 5%. But we are dealing with an issue of rise in bond yield. When will bond yield rise? Bond yield, you understand, will rise if the bond price in the secondary market that decreases. The interest that has been offered on the bond, that is not going to change after the bond has been issued. But when the bond keep changing hands in the primary and secondary market, bond price changes. Suppose the investor who bought the bond at rupees 100 is going to sell it at a lower price. Let's say rupees 99. The person who is going to buy this bond at rupees 99 will still get the same interest rate, which is rupees 5. But the bond price for him is only 99. So the bond yield for him will be more than 5%, 5.05%. Similarly, if the person sells the bond at higher price, and suppose there are buyers for that. Suppose he sold the same bond at rupees 101. Then in this case, the bond price has increased, so the bond yield will decrease. In this case, it will decrease to 4.95%. Bond price, like price of any other commodity, depends on demand and supply. If more people are willing to buy the bond price will increase. Why more people will be willing to buy the bond? Bond issued by government are safe because government are least likely to default. And bond issued by US government is the safest. But when the risk will be less, reward will also be less. The interest return on the bond issued by US government, very, very less. But if suppose the economy is all loomy-doomy, then the investors will be looking for safe investment. In that case, they will be running for bonds issued by US government or other governments with high credit rating. So in the secondary market, they will be willing to buy the government securities, bonds issued by government. The price of the bond will increase, but still they'll get certain return. Lower interest, but that will be the safe investment. If the economy is loomy-doomy, it is better to get somewhat lesser return, but to have a safe investment. Now imagine a scenario when economy has improved. The prospect looks better in startups, it looks better in corporates, it looks better in real estate. Then the investors will now try to get into those sectors. So they will try to get their money liquidated from the US bond market or the bond issued by other governments. In order to liquidate your money, you'll have to sell it at somewhat lower price to incentivize the buyer. So if you are willing to go away, you are decreasing the bond price and you are increasing the bond yield. And why are you willing to go away? Because you are looking better prospect in the economy elsewhere. So what does bond yield rise mean? It means a better economic prospect. Either the economy has come back on track or there is a big plan to bring the economy back on track. For example, the monetary policy of the central bank is such that they are going to cut the interest rate. That means they are going to pump in money in the economy to revive the economic growth. Then based on that expectation, the investors will get their money moved from the government bond into other areas of economy that will offer higher return. So one part of this link we have understood. If the central bank, the Fed, is adopting dovish policy, that means they are lowering the interest rate, then the bond yield is bound to rise. Now let's talk about as to what is the link between rising bond yield and negative effect on the equity market. See, if the bond yield is increasing, then two things will happen. Few people will take their money away from bond yield elsewhere in the economy. Maybe now they'll act as venture capitalist or angel investor, or they'll invest in real estate, give money to corporates otherwise through corporate bond where the return is higher, or whatever they want to. But definitely money is going to go away from the government security, government issued bond. But at the same time, the market will also try to correct itself. Since the bond yield is increasing, meaning the bond price is decreasing, if you buy the bond at lower price, your return will increase. And what more can you ask for? If you are getting higher return and at the same time zero risk, almost zero risk. US government bonds are considered to be the safest. US government is considered to be least likely to default. So if you are getting higher return on the safest investment, then money will start flowing in. Where the money will come from? One area from where money can fly in to bond market is from the equity market, the share market. In the share market, you buy shares of company, both private and public sector. The return there is often higher than the government issued bond. But when the return seems to be higher in the government issued bond, then for some investor, it will be more attractive to bring money from the equity market to the bond market. Additionally, as we have talked about, the very reason why bond yield started to increase was better economic prospect. So if foreign institutional investors now see better economic prospect in their own economy, then they are going to take away the money from Indian market, mostly the equity market, to invest back home. Now let's read the title of the news again. Equities fall as US bond yield rise on the Fed stance. Now let's read it backwards. On the Fed dovish stance, the US bond yield rose, leading to fall in equity market in India. That's it. That's all we wanted to do here. If you need a more elaborate discussion on this, please go through this discussion video on Indian Express Explained section. This news article is from page number 1. Supreme Court to hear plea against sale of electoral bonds. Chief Justice of India has agreed for an urgent hearing on the plea filed by an NGO, Association for Democratic Reforms. The plea is to stay the sale of new set of electoral bonds from April 1st, before the assembly elections happens in the crucial states of West Bengal and Tamil Nadu. Chief Justice has agreed now to hear the case. The judgment will come soon. When the judgment comes, you'll have to note down the arguments given by the petitioners and the one that is given by the Supreme Court itself. But for now, I'll quickly tell you the major issues related with electoral bonds. There are two important documents coming from two important organizations, RBI and Election Commission of India, saying that the sale of electoral bonds is detrimental to the democratic health of our nation. They are becoming avenue for shell companies and entities to park illicit money. The document of Election Commission also suggests that these monies can actually be used indirectly as bribes given to political parties, leading to nexus, a corrupt political corporate nexus. Further, via amendment to the original act, the cap of 7.5% of net profit in the past 3 years on campaigns donation by companies have been removed. The electoral bond effectively legalized the anonymous donation, stifling transparency in governance, which is a very important value for good and ethical governance. The second important issue is regarding the non-disclosure of information. You would be aware that the Finance Act of 2017 introduced the use of electoral bonds, and that exempted the disclosure under Representation of People Act 1951. Further, disclosure on electoral bond is also not done using Section 81E of RTI Act. Section 81E of Right to Information Act says that information available to a person in his fiduciary relationship is exempted from disclosure unless the competent authority is satisfied that the larger public interest warrants the disclosure of such information. Fiduciary relationship is the relationship which is based on trust. The money that you deposit in bank, that is based on trust. The bank is under fiduciary relation with the customers. SBI and its subsidiaries, while giving electoral bonds, consider that to be part of fiduciary relation with the customer. So PIO of SBI branches, they do not divulge any information related with electoral bond. They essentially use this Section 81E of RTI Act. But however, it has been suggested, also the petitioner in this case are saying that funds received by political parties from donors would naturally be of public interest. It will be of immense interest to the voters in order to understand the financing and hence the functioning of the political party. The policies that the political party once in power will adopt, that is very much dependent on the source of financing. If the financing is such that it suggests crony capitalism, then that is the direction in which the policy of the political party will move. If the donation is coming from individuals or companies that do not have any regard for environment, then it is highly likely that the political party will also not implement environmental rule of law. As a voter, it's my right to know where the finance of political party is coming from. So the legal argument here is information related with electoral bond is of public interest, and Section 81E of RTI Act cannot be used to shield the information. Further, Supreme Court in People's Union for Civil Liberties versus Union of India case in 2003 said that freedom of speech and expression also contains the fundamental right of a voter to secure information about the candidates who are contesting the election. And the information will include the source of campaign donations. But whether these arguments will be entertained by Supreme Court in this matter or not, and what will be the Supreme Court's stand on the issue, that is something that you have to keenly look for once the judgment comes. For the prelims examination, you have to know important pointers on electoral bond. We have covered that multiple times, and I'm appending here one video on the same.
First of all, it's a bearer instrument. Bearer instrument meaning the physical identity of the bearer, the purchaser, is not recorded, and the financial instrument is given to the bearer in the physical form. It is also a promissory note, having a promise from one party to another party to give a fixed set of money within a fixed set of date. And it is interest free. Electoral bonds are issued in multiples of rupees 1000, 10,000, 1 lakh, 10 lakh and 1 crore. There is no upper limit. But the bonds are issued only from the specified branches of SBI. This bearer instrument can be bought from the specified branches of SBI only on due fulfillment of all the process of KYC. So the identity of the purchaser will be recorded, but it will not be reported. The instrument will not carry any name of the payee. The electoral bond will have a life of only 15 days. Within this 15 days, the bearer instrument and the promissory note must exchange hand, must go from payee to political party, and the political party will redeem the sum of money from this bearer instrument. All political parties are not eligible for electoral bond, only those who have secured not less than 1% of votes in the last general election to Lok Sabha or Legislative Assembly. The political parties will have to disclose the amount of donations to the Election Commission, and that's how we know what percentage of money from the electoral bond has gone to which political party. But the catch here is, Election Commission cannot inquire into the origin of money because we have SBI sitting in the middle. That's all you need to know concerning electoral bond.
This is the lead article from page number 8, Biden and West Asia Tinderbox. In this article, the author has elaborately discussed option for President Biden in dealing with West Asia, vis-a-vis Iran, Saudi Arabia, Israel, and other regional players. The policy of President Biden in West Asia, specifically towards Iran, Israel, and Palestine, has been discussed already in the DNS dated 16 February 2021. In case you need help with this, you can refer to this DNS or the PDF notes of this DNS. Presently, I am going to pick on one thing. In the article, there is mention of a place called as Erbil. This is a place in the Kurdistan region of Iraq where President Biden ordered for aerial bombing. You have to keep tab on places like this which are often recurring in news because UPSC has got into habit of asking them. They gave a pairing of Chechnya with Russian Federation, which is absolutely correct. Chechnya was in news because of internal rebellion. Darfur back then was in news because of social unrest, but this is in Sudan, not in Mali. Swat Valley was in news for various reasons. One of the reasons was shooting of Malala Yousafzai in this region. But this is in Pakistan, not Iraq. Answer to this question was option A. So let's see some of the places constantly in news in recent time. Erbil, as we have talked about, this is in Iraq. This place often comes in news with regard to Kurdish movement and airstrikes by NATO forces. There is a port called as Ras Tanura Port, and there are two important oil fields, Abqaiq and Khurais. Abqaiq and Khurais, these two oil fields are in the city of Tehran. The city of Tehran and Ras Tanura Port, they are in Saudi Arabia. Ras Tanura Port and Abqaiq and Khurais oil fields, they have been allegedly attacked by drones by Iran-backed Houthi rebels. Although damage to life or property has not happened in these attacks, but these attacks are escalating tension in the region. There's a place very important, strategically placed, Hodeidah. This is in Yemen. Hodeidah is port city and the name of the port is Al Hodeidah. Saudi-led coalition often tries to cut off supplies to the region, mostly in Yemen, through this Hodeidah port. The port of Al Hodeidah is strategically placed in Red Sea. This is the location. Along with it, you must also take note of other important places in Yemen. For example, the capital Sana'a, Sada, Ib, Taiz. Aden, by the way, is also in Yemen, and hence the name Gulf of Aden. Mukalla also comes in news very often. These are the important places that you must remember vis-a-vis Yemen. Nagorno-Karabakh, you must be knowing, this is in Azerbaijan. After the last year's war between Azerbaijan and Armenia, Russia brokered a peace deal. And according to that deal, this region will remain under the control of Azerbaijan. This region shown in the map, this is Nagorno-Karabakh. Although it comes under the administrative control of Azerbaijan, but many people of Armenian origin inhabit this place. But for now, as we have talked about, Armenia has ceded this region to Azerbaijan as per the last year's Russian brokered peace deal. Atbara in Sudan was in news because of civil unrest. Iraq is a nuclear facility in Iran. Nuclear facilities in Iran are important for your prelims exam. You must remember their name. Iraq, Fordo, the important one Natanz, Asfahan and Bushehr. There is an article on page number 11. Rajya Sabha passes bill to
to raise FDI limit in insurance sector. Presently, this bill has been passed by Raj Sabha, it will go to Lok Sabha, and ultimately when it will become an act, perhaps then more news will come on this, and that will be the appropriate time to discuss the pros and cons of raising FDI limit in insurance sector. Today we are just going to talk basics. Regarding FDI limits in various sectors, I must give you one update. In defense production, FDI limit has been raised from 49% to 74% under automatic route. This was done last year May. Also, government has inserted a national security clause under which the government reserves the right to review any foreign investment in the defense sector that may affect national security. So things as it stands now, you can see at FDI in defense sector under three categories. Up to 49% will come under automatic route. In general, the next stage up to 74% will also come under automatic route as per the amendment in the rules done last year. But because of this national security clause, some of the investment coming from some of the countries as decided by the government will come under scrutiny in this bandwidth 50 to 74%. Up to 49% it still remains automatic. FDI in defense production above 74% likely will bring with it access to modern technology, or for some other reason that government may feel expedient, but that has to be recorded, and that definitely will be scrutinized from national security point of view. Previously, we have covered the basics of FDI and FDI limits in various sectors. I am just going to append that video for your reference.
Primarily, there are two modes of investment: FPI, foreign portfolio investment, and FDI, foreign direct investment. According to the guidelines given by the Government of India, if the foreign investment is less than 10% in any listed Indian company, then that will be considered as portfolio investment. If that is more than 10%, then that would be considered as foreign direct investment. This is the basic difference. Apart from that, you would be aware that in foreign portfolio investment, there is no control of management of the shareholder. But in case of foreign direct investment, ownership and management goes to the investor. India has come a long way in FDI reforms. And currently, India is pursuing the path of liberal FDI regime. Because in many of the sectors, Government of India has allowed 100% FDI. For example, in agriculture and allied activities, there is 100% FDI limit in automatic route. In automatic route, you do not require permission of Government of India from any ministry or department. The investment can happen with the mutual consent of investor and the company. Similarly, in coal mining, 100% FDI limit in automatic route. In defense, 100% FDI limit.
But if you have to invest more than 74%, you have to take the government route.
That means permission from the ministry has to be granted.
But up to 74%?
You can invest under automatic route. In print media, investment limit is only 26% and that too under government route. Airports 100% automatic route. Telecom 100% up till 49% automatic route. Beyond that, government route. In single brand retail, 100% FDI limit. But beyond 49%, government approval is required. In multiple brand retail, investment limit is 51%. But there are many conditions imposed. Can you tell me those conditions? In private sector bank, FDI limit is 74% and beyond 49% government approval is required. In public sector bank, you should remember the FDI limit is only 20% and that too through government route. In insurance and pension, the FDI limit is 49% under automatic route. It might get difficult to remember all the FDI limits, but what should do the bare minimum is to remember those sectors in which FDI limit is 100%. Then for prelims examination, you should be aware of the sectors which are completely closed for FDI, which are lotteries, gambling, chit funds and nidhi companies. Trading in transferable development rights, you must remember, is prohibited under FDI. Manufacturing of cigars, cigarettes, tobaccos, tobacco substitutes, and atomic energy and railway operations. In certain sector of railway like catering, FDI is allowed, but in railway operations, it is not allowed. So as we have just seen that India has opened up to FDI investment a lot, and you can see that India has started to adopt a liberal FDI regime. But suddenly this step is in reverse direction and India has kind of put a barrier on FDI investment. The recent change, as we have already talked about, is concerning land bordering nations, which will effectively mean China. Because a citizen of Bangladesh and China or an entity incorporated in these countries can invest in India only through government route. So this restriction of government nod is already there. And also, FDI from Pakistan in no way can be allowed in sectors such as defense, space and atomic energy. So Pakistan and Bangladesh already had this restriction, and as we have talked about, Afghanistan, Nepal, Bhutan, Myanmar does not rope in enough FDI. So the only left land bordering country is China. And according to the new regime, entities from countries which share a land border with India will now be permitted to invest only under approval route. That means government permission will be required. Permission from the concerned ministry and department will have to be taken. You must also be aware that the rule has been tightened not just for new FDIs, but also for the existing FDIs. The transfer of ownership of any existing FDI with the direct or indirect beneficiary from these countries will also require government permission. As of now, the changes have been made only for FDI, but it is expected that similar notification will be brought about by SEBI making changes for the rules of FPI. Now you must do a little bit of brainstorming and think what could be the inadvertent effect of these changes. Because the notification does not differentiate between listed companies or unlisted companies, greenfield or brownfield, nature of investment, for example in industry or financial sector or a venture capital, nothing, no difference at all. This covers any and every kind of investment. And you would be aware that many of the companies like Zomato, Swiggy, Big Basket, Snapdeal, Oyo, Ola, they have major investment from Chinese venture capitalists. And in the time of stress, barrier to the incoming financial investment can be disastrous. So think about it a little bit. Tell me the benefits and perhaps some inadvertent problems that will come because of this regulation.
This is the editorial article from page number 8. Aadhaar as a hurdle. Supreme Court has termed serious the allegation by a petitioner that 3 crore ration cards were cancelled for not being linked with Aadhaar database. And this has resulted in starvation and death. In this context, let's quickly see what was the Aadhaar verdict given by the Supreme Court and what were the provisions there to make it mandatory for Aadhaar to be linked with social services and the safeguards in case of failure of Aadhaar infrastructure. It has been a decade since Aadhaar architecture has been brought to light. But in 2016, Aadhaar was given statutory status through a legislation, Aadhaar Targeted Delivery of Financial and Other Subsidies, Benefits and Services Act 2016. Aadhaar entails with it numerous benefits. First of all, it is unique identification of people holding the Aadhaar card. Not necessarily the citizens, since Aadhaar number is also given to non-citizens. It is free of cost. It is inclusive and progressive because there is a provision of third gender. The data through Aadhaar will get digitized. It will help in digitization of public service delivery. It will also help in verifiability. So the fake records and duplication, they can be avoided. Supreme Court in the famous Aadhaar judgment agreed that there are privacy safeguards in the architecture of Aadhaar. Let me give you the summary of the Aadhaar verdict. First of all, it is constitutionally valid. What? The collection of data. Individual privacy has to be balanced with the overall goal of the state of welfare of citizens. And it is also constitutionally valid to table the Aadhaar bill as money bill. Supreme Court agreed with the argument of the government that through Aadhaar, benefit of subsidies are given in many ways. And if the government action involves withdrawal of money in the form of subsidies or otherwise from Consolidated Fund of India, then the bill can be presented in the form of money bill. Supreme Court said in the Aadhaar verdict that the privacy that was declared as fundamental right in Puttaswamy judgment is not violated by the Aadhaar architecture. Supreme Court said that the Aadhaar passes the crucial triple test, for which any government action must pass 3 tests. Number 1, existence of law. The action that the government takes that must be as per the law. And in case of Aadhaar, there is a law. The law is this: Aadhaar Targeted Delivery of Financial and Other Subsidies, Benefits and Services Act 2016.
The next test is of legitimate state interest. In using Aadhaar architecture, there is a state interest of public good. It can be used as a tool of inclusion. And third test is test of proportionality. You collect data only that is required. In case of Aadhaar, only minimalist and necessary informations are collected. So based on this triple test, Supreme Court declared Aadhaar architecture as constitutionally valid. Supreme Court also said that Aadhaar does not create surveillance state. Because the Aadhaar data, if at all has to be used in some cases, permission of court is required in that case. So since that will not be a purely executive decision, that's why Supreme Court said that Aadhaar architecture does not create surveillance state. And Aadhaar cannot be made mandatory. The power of choice will rest with citizens. If you want to give your Aadhaar number, it's okay. If you don't want to give, it's still okay. But however, Supreme Court upheld Section 7 of the Aadhaar Act, which makes Aadhaar mandatory to access social services. Supreme Court then took the opinion that dignity of community is linked with right to welfare schemes. Inclusion is an important constitutional mandate. So for better targeting for social services, Supreme Court agreed to make Aadhaar mandatory as mandated by Section 7 of the Act. But now you see this problem. When Aadhaar database has been made mandatorily to be linked with social services, ration cards are being cancelled. How many? 3 crore. And this is leading to starvation and death. But cancellation of ration card is not illegal. That is mandated by law under Section 7 of the Act. And this has been upheld, declared constitutionally valid by Supreme Court. Supreme Court also said that filing of income tax return that must be linked with Aadhaar. But bank account not necessarily has to be linked with Aadhaar. Supreme Court in the Aadhaar verdict struck down Section 57 of the proposed Act, which allowed the private companies to avail Aadhaar data. Supreme Court categorically said that private companies cannot insist on Aadhaar. Supreme Court also provided for some safeguards, like the data retained under Aadhaar architecture should not be stored for more than 6 months. Meaning for whatever purpose you want to retrieve the data, that has to be stored with you for 6 months only. After that, the data has to be automatically deleted. And most importantly, the disclosure of information, any information related to Aadhaar, must happen only after court order. Initially, the Act had the provision of disclosure of information via order coming from Joint Secretary level officer. But that would have been an executive decision and that could have led to surveillance state. But now since a court order is mandatory for disclosure of information concerning Aadhaar, Supreme Court was of the opinion that it will not create a surveillance state. And even when such an order comes, individual must be given opportunity of hearing. Meaning the individual must be given the chance to explain as to why his or her information must not be disclosed. And in case of breach of privacy, it is not just the UIDAI that will have the right to file complaint as it was initially said, but also individuals can file complaints against the breach of their privacy concerning Aadhaar. So these were the safeguards that were put by the Supreme Court in the Aadhaar verdict. Additionally, Supreme Court said that government must devise alternate authentication in case authentication failure is there, which is often the case for manual labels because their fingerprints gets distorted. Now it remains to be seen as to what stand Supreme Court will take on Section 7 of the Aadhaar Act. Previously the court has upheld it, but when you have problem as grave as this, what do?
That's all I had to teach you today. Now you sit back, focus and answer few questions. I'll ask you a question, you'll have very little time to think of the answer. You have to think of the answer before I give you the answer. If you are able to do that, very good. If you are not, then you have to improve. I'll give you statements, you have to tell me whether they are true or false. Bond yield will rise if bond price increases. If bond price increases, bond yield will decrease. It's an incorrect statement. It's very basic, we'll not discuss it. A rise in bond yield means interest rates in the monetary system have fallen. This is a correct statement. If bond yield is rising, that means bond price is decreasing. That means people are getting eager to sell them. Why? Because they are seeing opportunity elsewhere in the economy.
Why? Because the interest rate in the monetary system has decreased. So the central bank is taking a dovish stance, meaning money will be pumped in the economy and growth will be peddled. Statement 3. As bond yield rise, equity market is negatively affected. This is correct statement because if bond yield rise, there is opportunity cost of keeping your money in shares. You better take the money out of the share and invest in bond. Port Hudaydah is in Persian Gulf. Incorrect. Port Hudaydah is in Red Sea, Yemen. Ras Tanura port is in Red Sea. Incorrect again. Ras Tanura is in Persian Gulf. We have done Ras Tanura, it is in Saudi Arabia and it is here. Natanz nuclear facility is in North Korea. A easy one for you, it's an incorrect statement, it is in Iran. FDI limit in defense production has been raised to 74% from existing 49% under automatic route. This is a correct statement, it has been done last year May. Section 7 of Aadhaar Act mandates Aadhaar to be mandatory to access social services. It's an important fact that you must remember. This is a correct statement. Aadhaar cannot be made mandatory. Supreme Court said this in the Aadhaar verdict. This is absolutely correct statement. Now you can take question for the day. Also attempt DNS quiz on our eLearn platform. Goodbye. Take care.